Over the past few months, I've become a big Resident Evil fan. Ever since I played the Resident Evil 4 remake back in July, I've been hooked on the series. As of writing this script, I've been playing a lot of Resident Evil Village and the original 4. So after I finished 4 Remake, I tried to get my hands on any Resident Evil game I could. Later in July, I ended up playing Resident Evil 3 Remake. It's a very fun and well-made game that seems to have more than a few cracks in it. So let's take a deeper look into Resident Evil 3 Remake. Right off the bat, this intro cutscene is pretty creepy. Watching Jill's skin become pale and start rotting off was pretty unnerving. However, that whole section was just a dream. After walking around for a bit, we are then met with this game's main threat, Nemesis. I've seen some criticisms of his intro in this game, and I want to do my best to give my take on it. In the original game, you don't see him for a good while. He's only mentioned near the start. However, in the remake, you see him almost immediately. In the original game, it's a lot more menacing and creepy. Brad mentions that he is coming after STARS members. Who is he? Why is he coming after us? How much of a threat is he? Things like this can make the player feel a little more on edge. Everything is left up to the imagination, and you'll be second-guessing yourself out of fear. Although in the remake, he just shows up, busting through walls and throwing furniture like it's a football. You are immediately made aware of who he is and what he's capable of. You know if that thing catches you, you're done for. Some people may prefer the way the original game handled it, but I think both work in their own way. On one hand, you're going to be paranoid and worried about your surroundings until you finally see him. On the other hand, you already know what he can do, which would make you more afraid of him for the rest of the game. Both serve a different purpose. Would you rather be watching your back until you meet the threat, or would you rather be fully aware of the monster that could easily kill you? Like I said before, both work in the sense of a horror game, so I don't think one is worse than the other. After a bit of running, we meet Brad, who informs us that Nemesis is after STARS members. The game never tells you the full story about Nemesis. You have to do a bit of digging. After STARS destroyed Tyrant in Resident Evil 1, Umbrella created Nemesis to kill STARS for revenge. It's kind of funny that Umbrella created a mutant bioweapon to kill someone out of pure spite, like a toddler having a temper tantrum. Anyways, after we get onto the roof of a building, we manage to find a rescue helicopter that somehow explodes out of nowhere. Seriously, it makes no sense in this game. In the original, you see the helicopter flying by. It gives you a sense of safety, until Nemesis shoots it down. It makes you even more afraid of him, since obviously he's smart enough to shoot down a helicopter that was going to save you. However, in the remake, the helicopter just explodes out of the blue. Nemesis isn't even on the roof yet when it explodes. One thing I've noticed with the Resident Evil remakes is that they want to recreate iconic scenes but not give them the proper context. In Resident Evil 4, after Salazar realizes Leon is still alive after dropping him in a pit, he sends one of the Vertigo to come kill you in the elevator section. But in the remake, that never happens. We never see that play out. Heck, Leon has to actively remind the player of what the creature even is because of the lack of context.
You're Ramon's lapdog.
I can appreciate that Capcom wants to remake these iconic moments, but I think some of them could definitely be reworked to make more sense. Moving on, after getting chased by Nemesis some more, we meet the man, the myth, the legend, Carlos. I actually really like Carlos as a character. He's kinda like Leon, how he throws out jokes sometimes, but seems to be fully aware of the situation he's in. And come on, the way he was introduced was super cool.
Hey! Fuckface!
After Carlos takes us to a subway tunnel, we are later tasked with turning the power on to escape from the city. After wandering around the city for a while, we find that the power grid is overtaken by these giant bug guys. And oh my gosh, let me tell you, I hate these guys. Not because they're scary or tough, I just hate the way they inject parasites into you. Out of all the ways Capcom could have went about it, they had to make it so they jam a giant tube in Jill's throat. I'm more than confident I don't need to explain how uncomfortable that is to watch. When I first played this part, I made sure to kill every last one of them. Listen, it was either they die or serve 25 to life. No matter how you split it, these guys were gonna suffer one way or another. After turning the power back on, we get separated from Carlos since Nemesis started chasing us again. After making our way out of a pretty spooky sewer, we face off against Nemesis, who has a flamethrower. Even if he's trying to kill Jill, that's pretty cool. I'll talk about this more later, but I love the boss fights in this game. Fighting a giant mutant with a flamethrower on a burning building, it's just mwah, chef's kiss. After escaping from Nemesis once again, we continue through the city, only for him to come back again, with a rocket launcher. Who keeps supplying him with weapons?
What are you buying?
You know what? That makes sense. Once we escape from Nemesis for like the 100th time, Carlos leads us back to the subway tunnel. Later, we learn he'll be sent to RCPD to find a scientist that can make a vaccine for the zombie outbreak. After Jill takes the train, Nemesis once again somehow finds her. After trying to make an escape from Nemesis, someone named Nikolai locks us into the train. Nikolai shows up a couple times before this point, but his presence isn't really worth much in those early scenes. Once we escape from the subway tunnels, we have yet another encounter with Nemesis, but this time he's mutated. Every time Nemesis gets severely harmed, he mutates forms to cope with the damage. Not super integral to the story, but I thought it was still a cool little fact. After this showdown, Nemesis sticks us with a dirty needle and we contract a small amount of the T-virus. While all of this was happening, Carlos was at RCPD to try to find Dr. Bard so they could make a vaccine. This part of the game is one of my favorites, since you get to see the police department before the beginning of Resident Evil 2. It helps give some backstory to what was going on before Leon arrived, like what happened to the cop you met at the start, or how the steam blocking your path in the restroom got there. Nothing too over the top, but cool additions. After contacting Bard, we learn he's being held in a nearby hospital. While on the way, Carlos finds Jill and drops her off in a nearby recovery room while Carlos finds the vaccine samples. While making our way through the hospital, we find out that the T-virus was a bioweapon made by Umbrella, and they plan on trying to cover everything up and destroy the vaccine. After recovering a sample and giving it to Jill, Carlos goes underground to recover more samples for the vaccine. For time's sake, I'm gonna speed up the ending a bit here. Once Jill wakes up, she overhears the TV saying that Umbrella plans to nuke all of Raccoon City. Later, one of Carlos's partners mentions if they can get Umbrella the vaccine, they won't nuke the city. After Jill follows Carlos underground, she manages to make another sample of the vaccine. We later then get ambushed by Nemesis, and Nikolai steals the vaccine sample from us. After 2 more boss fights with Nemesis, we make it to a rooftop where Nikolai and Carlos are just beating on each other. After Nikolai destroys the vaccine, Jill shoots Nikolai and asks him why he did what he did. To which he responds, "There's a price tag for everything." Carlos and Jill then hop on a helicopter, then Raccoon City gets blown up, the end. Overall, I don't have many complaints with the story, but by far the biggest one I have is the length. I'm sure everyone who played this game agrees that it felt pretty short, especially for a Resident Evil game. It took me about 7 hours to finish the game, and that's considered sort of slow. However, I can't say that anything really felt rushed. The cutscene structure worked like any other Resident Evil game, everything flowed naturally and at a good pace. I think this is more due to the fact that Capcom removed a lot of areas in the map. I haven't played the original game for myself, shame me all you want later, but from what I've heard and seen, it seems like areas like the post office, City Hall, City Park, and other locations were cut. Even parts of Raccoon City were removed. It's an overall smaller location compared to the original. Why were these places cut? Who knows. As a new player, I can't say these missing areas were a distraction from my overall goal, but I can definitely see older fans being disappointed by these decisions. If we focus on the story again, I think some parts could have used some improvement. Nikolai is the biggest example I can think of. His only goal is money in this game. Nothing else gets mentioned. This isn't a bad motive, far from it, but it could have used some fixing for sure. I'll use Krauser from Resident Evil 4 as an example. We had never seen or heard of that character before when RE4 released, but they still managed to work in his motives in the game so you have a bare bones explanation of why he's doing what he's doing. After he was abandoned during a mission, he wanted power and revenge on the US. It's a good backstory, and you can find evidence of this through his monologues and documents. What I'm trying to say is RE4 did a good job of introducing you to a new villain. Meanwhile, Nikolai's just, I want money. Yeah, sure, monetary greed is a good foundation, but they could have built up on it. I'm not saying he needs to be obsessed with becoming a god or creating immortality. Less is more sometimes. I just felt like he could have been improved on is all. As for the rest of the characters, I enjoyed all of them, especially Carlos. Okay, sorry. Anyway, Jill was a pretty likable protagonist. She came off as aggressive and fed up, but honestly, I can forgive it here. In a high-stakes situation like this, most people wouldn't be completely calm, so I think it works for her. Carlos was a bit of a goober, but I love him anyways. That was the last time, I swear. His jokes kind of helped me take a step back and just laugh at the situation I was in.
Only to your right to get there.
You mean the alley that's on fire?
Maybe. Surely a tall drink of water like yourself can put out a few flames.
Fuck you.
It's alright, you're going ahead. I'm not gonna die on you, leave you in a cold, cruel, Carlosless world.
Okay.
There aren't many other characters to comment on. Those are pretty much the big three I wanted to talk about. So overall, while the story was short, it was still enjoyable, and I liked the characters. Personally, I don't really mind the short length, since it was still a good Resident Evil story and managed to give some context to RE2. I think now is a good time to move on to the gameplay of this game, so let's move on. The first thing I wanted to mention was the introduction of a dodge mechanic. Much like how RE4 Remake has a parry system, you can dodge most attacks in RE3. This makes combat so much easier and so much more satisfying. One part of the earlier Resident Evil games is how you go about killing enemies. You can save your bullets for a boss fight, or you can take down all the zombies in a single area so you don't have to worry about them when you come back. It's cool how the early Resident Evil games give you subtle choices like that. So with this dodging mechanic, it makes the first option much less punishing. You can easily get cornered and attacked by a group of zombies in this game, so if you choose to save your ammo, you can dodge them to avoid taking damage. I think adding this feature was a really smart move on Capcom's part, to help make encounters easier on players who don't want to kill every zombie they come across. Second, I want to talk about the crafting system. This also makes gameplay much easier, since you can craft the specific items you want as long as you have the materials. The game won't always give you handgun ammo or shotgun shells, so it's nice you can help offset that by making your own. Speaking of ammunition, this game has plenty of weapons that can make you feel like an absolute killing machine. Using those flame rounds against Nemesis was very satisfying. I don't know every single combat mechanic in this game, but I'll do my best to talk about all the ones I can think of. The easiest way to take out zombies in this game is to get headshots. They deal more damage and you might just take their head clean off their shoulders, so do that as much as possible. Sometimes they also get knocked down if you shoot their legs, and I usually use my knife until they get back up. It doesn't really do anything special, but it saves ammo, which is important. One exploit I would definitely keep in mind is the fact enemies don't usually go through doors. You could easily open a door, fire some shots, and then retreat. It's pretty cheesy, but hey, if it works, it works. You can also use the environment around you to defeat enemies as well. Shooting red barrels causes an explosion, and shooting the generators lets out a small bubble of electricity that stuns almost everything. I'm sure there's more complex stuff going on with the combat, but those are just some things I saw when I first played. Next, I have to talk about the boss fights. All of the fights against Nemesis are so fun in this game. The one I mentioned before with the flamethrower and the burning building is one of my favorites, and the one where he mutates for the first time makes it feel a lot more fresh since his attack patterns change. And that final boss fight is so cool. Me describing it won't do it justice. I'll play a clip.
Come on! Next time, take the fucking hit!
Say what you want about this game, but come on, the final boss is amazing. Since all the bosses are variants of Nemesis, there's not much else to talk about. However, I think all of his transformations are cool and creepy looking. Speaking of designs, I thought this game had some really good ones. Of course, you have no-brainers like zombies and zombie dogs, but lickers and hunter betas are pretty scary looking. I think it's genuinely impressive how Capcom manages to make these spooky designs after all this time. While we're on the topic of spooky, we should talk about the creepy elements of this game. Personally, I didn't find this game to be as scary as other games like 4 or Village. I know the rest of the internet wants to bang Lady Dimitrescu, but I actually found her pretty scary when I first played. I'm gonna go off script for a second, but if we just ignore all the rest of the internet stuff, can we all just agree that she was actually scary? I know everyone was like, oh yeah, tall vampire lady, but genuinely, she was scary. Like, walking out of the Duke's room and she would just be there ready to stab you and everything. It was scary. It was genuinely scary. It caught me off guard so many times. Anyway, back to the rest of the video. This game definitely had its moments though. Walking through Raccoon City made me feel a little uneasy since I didn't know where or when zombies could pop up. I was caught off guard in the sewer section when the Hunter Gamos appeared too. Even when I was in a safe room, I didn't feel fully secure. I felt like I could walk out a door and Nemesis would be standing right there. So while the game may not have scared me like I thought it would, it does a good job of making me watch my back and be constantly nervous about something even if I was safe. Which to me is a sign of a good horror game, making sure the player never feels too safe or comfortable. I'll go over a few miscellaneous things real quick before I wrap up this video. The sound design in these remakes are so good, which is something I love in video games. It seems like they gave everything a sound effect. Lights flickering, glass breaking, even when a zombie bites you, you can hear a lot of different and interesting noises. The best example of sound design I can give is the nightmare Jill has about Carlos.
Jill. It's the only way.
It's all really good stuff. I also really liked the voice acting in this game. Not only were the performances really well done, but I think the people they casted fit the characters really well. Especially Jeff Shine. His voice fits Carlos pretty much perfectly. Go back to that nightmare scene. The voice work is really top notch. Capcom also has a really good hold of the graphics for these remakes as well. Everything in the game looks so good, and I love all the attention to detail. Bullets will leave blood splatters on the zombies, objects will cast shadows, and the lighting is really good. Lastly, the OST was translated really well in the remake. A lot of the music is instantly recognizable and fits the tone of the game. I think the safe room theme is my favorite track in the game. It just has this eerie vibe to it, like it's trying to convey this is a secure space, but anything could jump out at you. It's just creepy and I like it for that. Many people have pointed out the issues with this game, and I can't fully defend it. There are some strange decisions this game made with all the cut content and story beats, but at the end of the day, it's an incredibly fun and well-crafted game. It has better controls, better combat and gameplay, and still manages to be a good survival horror game. The voice actors did a good job, the music is well composed, and the graphics are amazing. Like I said before, this game does have some issues, but it's far from the worst Resident Evil game ever. Cough cough Umbrella Corpse. To me, it's still a really fun and well put together game that I hope other people enjoy as well. What'd you guys think of this video? I tried to make it a little bit longer because I noticed some of my other reviews are super short, like 6, 7, 8 minutes long, so I tried to go more in depth with this one. Hopefully you guys liked it. I tried to be as neutral as I could, as unbiased as I could. I didn't want to be an absolute RE3 Remake hater, but then I also didn't want to be an absolute RE3 Remake meat writer on this video either, so I tried to go pretty middle ground, pretty even. I know I was saying mostly positive things, so it might seem like I'm trying to make this game seem better than it is, but honestly, I just saw a lot of really good things in this game, and I just wanted to talk about them. I've seen a couple Reddit threads, a couple videos saying, oh, RE3 Remake is bad, RE3 Remake, it's the worst remake, but I don't agree with that. I feel like that's a little bit much. I do agree, all the cut content, all the cut areas that I had talked about earlier, that definitely was strange, which makes me believe this game might have been rushed, but at the same time, it looks like there was a lot of attention to detail and a lot of care put into it, so I don't know. It's just weird that they did that, honestly. They cut content, they cut some stuff, it's weird, it's strange, but I still think this game is really good. Anyways, I hope you liked the video. I hope that you guys liked that this was a bit of a longer review. I wanted to do a longer review, and I felt like this was good. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it if you did it. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all later.